Today we're going to be starting over, I think, 16 seeds, and we're starting with Rainbow Blend Coleus. I may be pronouncing that wrong. I have a space in my front yard that gets barely any sun, and these guys love the shade. So we are planting roughly 75 of them, and they are an annual. You want to surface sow these seeds, and they do need a spacing of about 6 inches, which is roughly what I have up front. It does take 20 days for these little babies to emerge, and their ideal temp is 70 to 80 degrees, and they don't really mature because they don't really produce anything. They're just super freaking pretty. They're also not cold tolerant, but they like the shade. So do not put these little babies in direct sunlight. They will just wilt and fall over. Next, we have decorative double blend dahlias. Last year, I fell in love with dahlias, and I watched Garden Answer, and she tried to overwinter hers and got like something called thrips infested everything. And since I can't afford a drone to come and wipe those baby bad boys out, I'm going to try to grow them from seed this year and see how that does. These are annual, so you do have to grow them every year. They need 8+ hours of sunlight. Their ideal temp is 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and their days to bloom / maturity is 90 days. They are not cold tolerant, so you want to make sure that it is plenty warm outside when you go to plant these. This is a new one for me this year. It's called Magic Carpet Blend Snapdragon. But who wouldn't want a magic carpet in their yard? That just sounds so magical and awesome. You do want to surface sow these, so you're barely going to cover them with dirt. The days to emerge is 15. They do need 6+ hours of sunlight. Their ideal temp is 40 to 70 degrees, and their days to maturity is 60. And they take roughly 15 days to emerge. If you would like to follow along in what we are planting for this year's Grow With Me, the PDFs that I have on the screen are available in the Stand Store for free, or you can get the paid version of a Google Doc for $10.99. Next, we're going to be doing the Swiss Giant Blend Pansy. This is a perennial, I can talk, a perennial, so it will come back every single year. You want to put these about 1/8 inch deep in the soil. When you go to transplant them and you want them, oh my God, I can't talk today, y'all. Okay, outside you want them 4 inches apart. They take about 20 days to emerge. They need 4+ hours of sunlight. Their ideal temp is 40 to 60 degrees, and their days to bloom is 90, and they are cold tolerant. Maybe after my coffee kicks in, I'll be able to speak real words. Now we have candy stevia. I grew 1 or 2 of these plants last year, and it is an annual, so I wanted to try it from seed this year. I got my seeds from Botanical Interests. You want to do these about 1/8 of an inch apart. When you go to transplant them outside, you want them 20 inches apart. Their days to emerge is 21. They need 6+ hours of sunlight. Their ideal temp is 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. It also takes 105 days to maturity, and they are not cold tolerant. Hence why we are starting them in January / February, because they take for bloody ever to mature. And we want our stevia when we want our stevia. Also, you can make your own stevia drops to go in like your coffee. That's super expensive crud you buy at the store. And you can make it if you grow your own stevia. And we'll probably be doing that later on when the stevia comes up. Next, we are moving on to the dill bouquet. I got this from Botanical Interest. Dill is an annual. You want to surface sow this. You're barely going to cover it with any dirt. When you go to transplant this outside, it needs to be about 12 inches apart. It takes 25 days roughly to emerge. Emerge dates are very random. Some things emerge within days. Some things take longer. Some take weeks or months even. The days to maturity is 90. It is cold tolerant, and its ideal temp is 6 degrees Fahrenheit. When it does get hot out, this will go to seed, but it is awesome to see like one of the first pops of color being your dill, and that bright, bright yellow color is just so beautiful, and it's tasty. And this is where she fucks up. I was supposed to plant 2 rows of common oregano, and later in the video I get a little confused because I'm off by a row. So oregano is oregano. A lot of us know what that is. It is a perennial, so it will come back every year. Last year I figured out I did not plant near frickin' enough. So we want to put these seeds at about 1/8 of an inch deep. When we go to transplant them outside, they need about 20 inches of space. It will take roughly 10 days to emerge. They need 8+ hours of sunlight. Their ideal temp is 70 to 78 degrees, and they are cold tolerant. Something I learned last year, I planted them near the stevia and other taller plants, and that shade from the other plants really helped it to just keep growing all year, though still I only did 1 plant, and that was nowhere near enough oregano for our household. On to English thyme. So freaking tiny. That's why I'm growing 2 rows of it. It's so freaking tiny, and I really like the flavor. I got this from Botanical Interests. It is a perennial. You want to start your seeds at about 1/8 of an inch deep. When you go to transplant them outside, they need to be 12 inches apart. It takes roughly 15 days for these to emerge, and they will need 6+ hours of sunlight. The ideal temp is 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and the days to maturity is a long 105 days, hence starting them now. And they are cold tolerant, so you can actually plant these both in the spring and in the fall and probably get pretty good crops from both. Remember, they do come back. So once you plant them, they are there unless you rip them up by the roots. Then we are moving on to broadleaf sage. This thing has so many names. It's actually kitchen sage. This is the cooking sage. I got it from Botanical Interests. It is a perennial, so again, where you plant it is where you plant it, and you will have to dig it up by the roots if you want to move it. We are going to start these seeds at about 1/4 of an inch deep. When we go to transplant these outside, they're going to need 18 inches of space. They're going to take about 21 days to emerge. Their ideal temp is 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and they need 4+ hours of sunlight a day. They are cold tolerant, so you're good to go starting these now and then putting them out about 2 weeks after your first frost. You don't want the roots to get super cold and frosty underneath the soil, so you do want to make sure that nothing is going outdoors and into the ground until that ground is not going to frost again. Cold tolerant can handle a light frost, but it cannot handle deep freezes, so you want to keep that in mind. Broadleaf sage has about 100 days to maturity, hence again why we start so early with broadleaf sage. What all are your alls? I still can't talk today, for crying out loud. What do y'all like to plant in your gardens? I would love to know. I plant an array of things because I like to try all the things, and I tend to go a little overboard. Does anybody else go overboard? Next, we have winter savory. I got this from Botanical Interest. It is a perennial, so again, where you put it's where you put it. It does get to be like a bush, so it does need plenty of space. You want to surface sow these seeds, so we're barely going to cover them in dirt. When we go to transplant these transplants outside, we are going to put them roughly 12 inches apart. They're going to take about 20 days to emerge. They're going to need 8+ hours of sunlight. Their ideal temp is 65 to 70 degrees. It's going to take roughly 100 days for these bad boys to mature, but once they're there, they're there. And they are cold tolerant, so they will come back every year and be just as beautiful. Next, we are working on a violent. It is 6:30 in the morning when I am doing this, so we know where my mind is, and the coffee is obviously not kicked in. Violet Queen Salvia. This is a perennial that I got from Botanical Interest. The seed depths we want to do on this is we are barely going to cover them. When we go to transplant these outside, we want there to be about 18 inches of space. It's going to take roughly 15 days for these bad boys to emerge. They're going to need 4+ hours of sunlight. Days to maturity is 105, and they are cold tolerant. I just really wanted to grow this. I don't know why I always call it Violent Queen Salvia. Next, we have lemon bee balm. So be careful, y'all. This is part of the mint family, so it will take over wherever you plant it. So if you don't have a lot of space, I would suggest doing this in a pot when you go to put it outside. We are going to surface sow our seeds. Once we go to transplant outside, though, they're going to need 12 inches of space. It will take roughly 14 days for them to emerge. They need 8+ hours of sunlight. Their ideal temps are 60 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and days to maturity is 90. They are not cold tolerant, so you want to make sure it's pretty warm outside and that your soil is actually at minimum 60 degrees before you plant these, because if the roots get too cold, it will die off. Then we have our catnip. Yes, catnip. I plant catnip to deter local cats from eating everything else in my garden, and they can just have at the catnip all they want, which is why I'm planting so much of it. Again, catnip is part of the mint family and will take over. Our seed depth is going to be 1/8 of an inch deep. And then when we go to transplant these outside, we'll need 12 inches of space. They take roughly 15 days to emerge. They're going to need 6+ hours of sunlight. Their ideal temp is 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and it takes roughly 95 days for them to mature. And they are cold tolerant. And yes, more mint. This is common mint, just your basic mint that you can use in teas. It is a perennial, so getting rid of this stuff is a pain. So just make sure you want it, and if you don't want to have to dig it up out of the ground, every single root to get rid of it, put it in a pot. We are going to surface sow these seeds. When we go for spacing outside, we have 18 inches of space that is needed, and this is where I got confused. I was like, why am I not down the right number here? So we fix it. These bad boys are going to need 6+ hours of sunlight. Their days to emerge is roughly 14, and days to maturity is 90. And yes, they are cold tolerant. Why do I need all the mints, you ask? Because I have one area in between my house and my garage where nothing grows, and mints are so bloody and invasive that they grow like magic in that area. So then when we go to mow it and clean it up, it smells fabulous. When you go and order a whole bunch of seeds, and this is Botanical Interest, Baker's Creek, pretty much anywhere, they'll send you free seeds. This is one of those seeds, and I'm going to probably butcher the crap out of this name. Stalpaglossus Q Blue is a flower. Botanical Interest sent this to me for free. It is an annual. We're going to do these at a surface sowing, so we're barely going to cover them with dirt. When we go to put them outside, we're going to put them at 12 inches apart. They take roughly 30 days to emerge. They're going to need 8+ hours of sunlight. Their ideal temp is roughly 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and they are cold tolerant. Again, I've never planted this seed. They were given to me for free, so we're going to try and see what happens. And since I muffed up on the oregano, I have an extra row, so we tossed in some anise hyssop, which I bought from Botanical Interest. This is also a perennial. We are going to surface sow these seeds. When we go to transplant outside, however, they do need 12 inches of space. They're going to take roughly 20 days to emerge, and they're going to need 4+ hours of sunlight. So if you have a shadier spot, this is a great plant to put there. Their days to maturity is 105, and their ideal temp is 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is cold tolerant. So you can plant this both in the spring and in the fall and still get some love from the plant. Thank you all for sticking around this long in the video. Again, all of these PDFs can be found on my stand store link in the description. If you would like the editable, configurable, maneuverable with all the links and everything in a Google Sheet, that is available at the stand store for every growing zone for $10.99 in case you want to follow along, make a copy, make your updates, and do what y'all got to do. Our last step here is we are going to spray down the tops of this with a mix of water and Neptune's Harvest and get that fairly wet on top before we go ahead and cover it with saran wrap, because at this point, why not? And then put it underneath the plastic when we get it downstairs. I don't show that part because I almost die falling down the stairs. So after this, we're going to go put it under grow lights, and we're going to leave those grow lights on for 8 to 14 hours roughly. They do not need a heat mat because most of these seeds are cold tolerant. Thank y'all. I hope you have a blessed and magical week. Bye.